Hey Mark, how you doing? Thank you for kicking things off here. That's not always the easiest thing to do, so I certainly do appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Now, I'm basing this set of critique comments on not only what we have here, but also what you've submitted in terms of your sketches from last week, as well as your writing from this week in the discussion board. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the background. The background of the crumbled newspaper, can't have it. And let me give you the reason why. It'll make sense. It'll make a lot of sense. And one of the requirements for the assignment is not to use imagery on the front of the poster, unless, of course, if that imagery is heavily incorporated into the type itself, using those principles of simultaneity, visual transformation, visual substitution, visual exaggeration, and visual correspondence. And we looked at those during week 5 and week 5 lecture. And then also specifically on pages 115 to 120 in the textbook. There's some fantastic examples there. And the reason imagery is not accepted in this assignment on the front of the poster is because we are trying to create all meaning based on typographic choices. When we add images, it's a different way of communicating. So right now we're concentrating on establishing all meaning, denotative, connotative, on typographic choices. Now you can manipulate the letter forms as we see in those strategies of simultaneity, etc., but including an image would not be permitted in this particular case. So sans the image, let's take a look at what we have going on. Now you understand these strategies of simultaneity and transformation, substitution, exaggeration, and correspondence, and you're showing you understand this by creating meaning, by adding things to the actual typefaces. That's fantastic. The issue I'm having over here is there's just too much going on right here. Okay, you're asking the viewer to basically create 3 or 4 different meanings here, and we're just not capable of that. There's an old book called Don't Make Me Think, and of all things, it is regarding website design. And the principle and the main premise in the book is that as human beings, we, especially based on visual communication, we don't like to have to think. So in other words, we want things to be very, very easy for us to figure out. So when we come down here and we see the peace sign in conjunction with the bowl of the G, the H, the bar of the H coming down here and acting as the bar of the peace sign, the left side of the H being different than the right side, the rifle coming off the bottom of the G, it's just too much to process. And therefore, there's a principle called Hicks Law. And Hicks Law is relevant in this case because Hicks Law states that whenever you add something to what's already there, it ends up taking away from what's already there. So if you're trying to establish meaning and you keep on, okay, so let's say you're trying to establish meaning that Kissinger was a proponent of peace. Okay, placing a peace sign in the opening of the G is a great choice, right? But these other things take away from that. Okay, this is antithetical to peace, the rifle. So there's confusion right there. This is really visually tense right here. The fact that the H is just a little different. But listen, I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to get you to understand how visual communication can sometimes backfire in your attempt to create meaning by creating too much meaning, which takes away from the inherent meaning. And that's Hicks' Law. The more you add to something, the more it takes away from what's already there. Okay, so you've got a lot of different meanings here. You've got the monospaced typewriter font. You've got the peace sign. You've got the manipulated H. You've got the rifle, and then you've got the brink of peace. So I think there's too much going on here. So I would concentrate on trying to establish one communicative meaning here and sticking with it. Okay, so for example, if you were to use the peace sign right there, okay, leave the H and Henry alone. Just leave the peace sign alone. You don't have to bring it, you don't have to marry it with the Henry. Leave the peace sign alone. I'm using this strictly as an example. or let's use let's forget the peace sign, get that out of there. Just forget all of this and just use the AK-47 off the G. Okay, that's a powerful, powerful message. Why? Because it's simple. You don't have conflicting messages. You just have the G. It sparks the interest of the viewer. The viewer is seeing, okay, I see Henry Kissinger, I see a rifle coming off the G, and I'm interested to see the connection here. The viewer can't wait to turn the poster over to see that connection. Okay, so using that example, you could take that visual correspondence and you could take continuation of that concept and create a timeline on the back using the silhouette of the rifle. So on the back of the poster, you have the rifle, and then you have the little labels coming off indicating time, and that'll create. And again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not trying to direct this project. I'm just giving you some ideas and some alternatives. Okay, so think about that. Now, one of the things I think I think that this is interesting. However, I would recommend Typographic Variety. In other words, you've got this kind of typewriter typeface, but that's the only one you're using. Okay, so think of variety, either sans serif or a different serif or some other different typeface instead of using, there's 3 instances of type on the front of the poster and you're all using the same typeface. Is that the best way to establish variety? And I say no, and I'm sure once you think about it, you'll agree with me. The typeface itself, this typeface, I remember from your writing, you're going for a typewriter typeface. This is not, I don't think this is it. This is establishing this monospacing, but if you take a look at the bottom of that I, it's just really unnatural that it's so wide. It's almost obvious that the I is not as wide as the other letters. So by taking the base of that I and just stretching it, I think it's a little bit uncomfortable visually, especially when you start to compare it to some of the serifs of the other letters. So for that, there's a typeface called American Typewriter, and I got it pulled up right here. Here it is right here. It's called American Typewriter, and it's a pretty accurate depiction of type. And so take a look at that. I believe I just Googled American Typewriter font, and you can see how that works. It comes in different versions too. Here's a distressed version that I think is really, really interesting because see the irregularities here, the baseline, and that's how typewriters were. I don't know if you remember, but they were always, the older a typewriter got, the more distressed they got, and it was almost each typewriter had their own little personality. I think that's a really, really interesting. That's American Typewriter. What the heck was it called? Distressed. So you've Googled that if you're interested in that. So at any rate, yes. So I would try to replace this typewriter font with something that's depicts a little more reality and the actual way that a typewriter font looked and the personality of the typewriter font. Okay, I hope my comments make sense. I really do. I think that you're showing pretty good. I think spacing. One thing I'm never a fan of center align anything, whether it's horizontal or vertical. So remember the rule of thirds. Center placement is, and I'm talking about this horizontal placement right here. You've got equal space above and below, and as we know, that kind of symmetry is not always, or is rarely, the most interesting way to engage negative space. Okay, hope my comments make sense. Keep working, keep practicing. And let me know if you have any questions or if anything I'm saying here after 9 minutes. I'm sorry I took so long. If I need to clarify anything, please let me know. I'll be glad to do so. All right. Thanks, Mark.